Good evening, everyone. My name is Alan Kazarian. I am the Guidance Director of the Falmouth High School Guidance Department, and we're very excited to have you join us this evening for a presentation on college planning for seniors. We have a lot of information to share with seniors and their parents as we go forward in these next few months. I'd first like to introduce my team. I'm very proud of the guidance counselors at Falmouth High School. We have Ms. Payne. She gives us a wave.
Good evening.
Mrs. Ruthven, Mrs. Brooks, Mr. Lawson, and we have a guest, Mr. Ashton, who's doing Lovejoy, who's doing an internship with us in the guidance department. So the seniors will see him in the guidance office. So give us a wave, Mr. Ashton. Thank you. This evening, we want to present to you a number of informational points and step-by-step process that seniors will engage in as part of their college and career planning. Ms. Payne, if you could get us started with the started page, I'd appreciate it.
All right, can you see that?
Yeah.
Perfect.
And then one more, if we could go. There we go. Thank you. Certainly seniors at this point are at different places. Some have probably already begun searching colleges, probably have a list put together. Others are just starting to consider it. And some are probably wondering, what are we even talking about? So throughout this process, the guidance counselors will guide you through every step of it. They will meet with you one-on-one. They will work with you. They will support you, and they will advocate for you. As part of your search, you're going to be using Naviance. Hopefully you're familiar with the Naviance program. This is a program that is open to all students, and Ms. Payne will talk more in depth about it. But that'll be part of your college planning. The next one, students will meet with their counselors one-on-one. Every senior will have a one-on-one meeting to look at and to adjust their plans for after high school and as they enter the next phase of their life. We're going to talk about college fairs. We're going to have an in-person college fair, which we'll look at in a minute. And then there are also virtual college fairs. And these fairs will give seniors an opportunity to look at colleges. You may not have had a chance to go around and visit schools, or school campuses might not be allowing students in. But in whatever case, using a college fair and meeting college reps is important in this process, because it gives you a window, an open window into what the college life might be like, and you're learning more about the college by talking to the representative. So we're going to strongly support and encourage that activity. And then for webinars. These are going to be very important, probably more for parents as you consider financial aid for college and filling out the FAFSA form. And then we'll talk about that. One of the counselors will talk about that throughout the evening. But keep this word in mind, MIFA, the Mass Educational Financing Authority. That's going to be a very important tool for parents. And they also offer a tremendous amount of resource on their website. And we're going to direct parents and even students, if they like, to their website and to their webinars on how to fill out the FAFSA form so that you can get the required applications in. Just another couple of quick reminders. On the first day of school, seniors met with their guidance counselors and they received a permission form, a senior permission form, and we asked you to return those by the end of the month. We need to have those permission forms for a couple of reasons. And one is for giving us permission to release your records that we will send transcripts and so forth to colleges. And the other reason is we need to know exactly how you want your name printed on your diploma. We will be ordering diplomas within the next month or two, and we need to have the exact names and spellings of what you want on your diploma. So that form needs to come back to the guidance office. We have a good number already, but we don't have them all. So I send that reminder out to you as well. I also want to put a note in about scholarships. You're going to get emails. Seniors are going to get emails from Mrs. Carrera. You'll see Joanne Carrera, who will be sending out announcements on scholarships throughout this year. More so as we get into winter months, February and so on. And we'll have trainings, and we're going to have workshops for seniors and explanations on how to find them. But right now, there are a couple that have already been posted. They get posted in Naviance, and they also get sent to seniors. One of them is the Heisman Award, and we've had students in the past who have collected nominations and recognition through the Heisman program, scholarship program. The website that was sent to seniors, and this is for parents, is called HeismanScholarship.com, HEISMAN scholarship.com. You can go to that website. We have until October 19th to apply. The requirements are a student having a GPA of 3.0 or better, participation in one sport, and demonstrated leadership at a school or community event. So that's something to keep in mind. Heisman, HEISMAN scholarship.com. The other one that went out to seniors already is from the Elks. And it's called, you can go to www.elks.org/scholarships. And that deadline is November 15th. And all it says is a current high school senior. You do not have to be related to a member of the Elk. High school graduates cannot apply, and you must be a U.S. citizen. So very simple, but the Mass Elks and the National Elks have given us tremendous amounts of money to our senior students. So I would keep that particular scholarship in mind also. Okay, if we can go to the next slide, please. On October 20th, we are going to have a college fair at Falmouth High School. It's still on. We have almost 100 colleges that will be in attendance in our field house. This is a tremendous event. We missed it last year, but for the seniors, this is going to be a very important event to engage in with college representatives. It'll be during your period 4 class. So you'll have your regular lunch, whatever lunch you have, period 4, and then the opposite time you will come to the college fair. This will give you a time to walk around the field house. You'll get to engage with different college representatives, and you may be able to find a school that you never even thought about or never even heard of. And you might find a program that you didn't know about, and suddenly, things start to change or start to click. Some of you may find colleges on here that you've already thought about or plan to apply to. Well, that would be huge for you to meet that representative, because it's more than likely that that representative is going to be reading your application and going to committee to make a decision regarding your acceptance. So I strongly encourage seniors to get involved on October 20th with the college fair, and to meet as many reps as they possibly can. The next one, please. And then this is a virtual college fair offered by the National Association of College Admissions Counselors. And there are a bunch of different dates. And it's called virtualcollegefairs.org. And then you see some dates. So those are opportunities that you can have right from home to go virtually and to talk and to sign in to look at different colleges and to actually have a chat with representatives from those colleges. So some students may be going further away than the Northeast area, and you'll see some of the other opportunities that would be available to you. And then the next one. Strongly recommend you write this website down, mifa.org/events. This is what every parent is going to need regarding college, financial aid planning, how to fill out the FAFSA form, how to get ready for college dollars that you're going to need to help support your children as they go on to college. So mifa.org/events. Click into one of their webinars, just to give you a heads up, and someone will talk about this in a moment, but the FAFSA form may be submitted after October 1st. So you have plenty of time. We're going to encourage you to hopefully get it done by January 1st, but you have a window of time. But go to the MIFA to find out more information about the FAFSA form and how to do the application. So I thank you for a few minutes of your time, and I'm going to turn it over to Miss Rachel Payne, who will get us started with some other information. Thank you.
Good evening, I'm Rachel Payne. Thank you very much for the introduction. So I'm going to talk a little bit about a couple of the programs that we have here and that your student is going to be using in the next couple of months. Naviance is the first of these programs. This is a free site that your student may already be a little bit familiar with, as we have done some work on Naviance in freshman and even sophomore years. But this is a site that they're going to use quite frequently, both for preparing the counselor for what colleges they're applying to, and as well as finding out information about colleges that they may be interested in. So to access Naviance, the easiest way to go is to the website I have linked here, student.naviance.com/Falmouth. You can also reach this site from the main high school page. It's under for students. When you log in, there is no longer a login email and password. Instead, we just use the continue with single sign-on button that you see there, that sort of greenish teal color. Click that and it'll allow your student to log in with their school email address, making it super, super simple. Oops. There we go. This is what they're going to see when they first log into Naviance. It is essentially a one-stop shop for all of their college needs as they're looking into schools that they may be interested in. This is also a great site for students who want to look at a sort of a backwards design, I call it, where they're looking at a career that they're interested in, learning more about how to get to that career, and then finding out which colleges offer the major that would get them to that career. So both of those pathways, whether going straight to college or looking at a future career plan, you can find using those links right at the top. You'll see it says home, self-discovery, careers, college, and planner. Also under the colleges button, you're going to find the list of all of our scholarships that Mr. Kazarian was talking about earlier. So this is going to be a very useful tool all the way through the senior year. One of my favorite parts about this is that search bar there. You just type in a college name. So for example, we've pulled up Bridgewater State University. You can find out all of their information, their demographics, their admissions rates, deadlines, and any sort of financial aid information. This has become more and more filled out. I think that one of the benefits of all of the colleges going to virtual events. So we've got a ton of really good information here. There's even, as you can see at the top, a virtual tour button. It links you right to their applications, and then a few other really important pieces here. One of those awesome pieces is my favorite tool, the Scattergrams. And this is probably the student's favorite tool as well, because all of those little check marks and X's are Falmouth High School students from 2009 up until last year who applied to each of these colleges. Check marks mean they were accepted, X's mean they were denied, and any of the circles mean that they were waitlisted. So you can find your student, when they log in, they'll have their information in, meaning they're going to have their GPA and their SAT or PSAT scores if they took it, and they're going to be able to see where they fall right in that mass of different acceptances. Now, in a school where only a few students from Falmouth have applied, there will be fewer of those. But for something like Bridgewater, something like UMass, there's going to be a ton of information here, and it's a great tool to see if you fall in the middle of that pack, or if you feel like this is going to be a good choice, a good safe school for you to apply to, and you have a high chance of getting in. Naviance is also going to be the place where your student is, it's also going to be the place where your student's counselor is entering their letter of recommendation, where teachers are going to enter their letters of recommendation. So it's extremely important that your student uses this tool, adds the colleges that they're interested in looking at further, or definitely once they get their college list ready, adding those in so that we can access them and we can see where we need to send all of the information to. The other tool I wanted to talk a little bit about, you probably have heard of this before, it's the Common Application, commonapp.org. With over 900 colleges and universities that use this application, chances are at least one of the schools that your child is going to be applying to will use the Common App. They can get started on this as soon as today. They need to just make sure they sign up with their personal email, not with their school email, please. But this application allows them to fill out the basic information and all their personal information, all of their school history, the kind of questions that you'd fill out a million times if you were filling out multiple applications to multiple different schools. Now you fill it out one time with one application, and then the Common App allows colleges to use individual questions. So say, for example, UMass Amherst has a big sustainability focus. They may put an individualized question on there about sustainability. Those are considered the supplemental questions. And then last year, they added a question for colleges to ask about your experience with COVID-19. I do believe that question is still on there. So if you feel there is something very important that you want to say, or your student would like to say about their experience with COVID-19, there is going to be a place for them to add that on there. And that's it for me. I'll turn you over to Mr. Lawson.
Thank you very much, Ms. Payne. So now we get to the point where with established a list of schools that we're looking to apply to, and here's where those scattergrams that Ms. Payne showed us really come into play. The first category of school is we want to make sure we have at least one safety school in the list. And these can be determined very easily by viewing those scattergrams. This is a school that basically the student would have a 100% chance of acceptance. Their GPA and also their test scores, if applicable, would be at the higher end of average or above average for this particular school. It may sound redundant to say this, but this would also be a school that the student would be happy to attend. It should have their major, it should be in a reasonable location. And yeah, to make sure that that is a school that they would be happy to attend as a safety school. The next category are realistic schools. These are schools where the student basically has a 50-50 chance of acceptance. Again, the GPA and test scores, if applicable, should fall within the school's average range, maybe slightly below. And you could have anywhere from 1 to 5 realistic schools in that list. The last category we have are our reach schools. These are schools where maybe it's a school that you've dreamed about your whole life. Maybe they're just a little more selective than you think you can get into, but it's really your dream. You may be somewhat close, so it's worth a shot. Students could have maybe no reach schools, maybe they'll have 2 or even 3 reach schools. But this is just kind of a way to ensure that we've got a safety school. We know we're going to have a place at the end of the year, and then those realistic and reach schools in there as well. Okay, next slide, please. Now the Massachusetts State Universities. So we've got lots of great schools there listed down the left-hand side of the screen. These schools require as minimum entrance they need. All students must have 4 years of English, 4 years of mathematics, including algebra 1 and 2 and geometry, 3 years of natural and physical science, and or technology or engineering, including lab work. There are some exceptions in there as well, where that can count in lieu of a science class. They need at least 2 years of social studies, including 2 years of US history, and 2 years in the same foreign or world language. Now, community college students who maintain at least a 2.5 or higher GPA. Let's say a student started off at Cape Cod Community College. Maybe UMass Amherst was their dream school. They might not quite have had the grades to get in right from high school. Started a community college, maintain at least a 2.5 GPA for 2 years. You're then guaranteed acceptance at UMass Amherst as a junior. You will also save a lot of money, as the community colleges are much less expensive than any of the 4-year schools here. Okay, next slide, please. All right, so now admissions testing. So there's some big changes here. The SAT that most folks are most familiar with, it's a product of the College Board. It tests, there are 2 sections, reading, writing, and a math section. It's scored on a scale of 1600, with 800 as a maximum score for each section. There used to be an optional essay that students could elect to take. That has been discontinued. October 2nd, this will be offered at Falmouth High School. Then later, November 6th and December 4th, not at Falmouth High School, but at nearby locations. And the register by dates there for each of those times as well. Another big change, SAT subject tests have been discontinued. So those are no longer in existence. Any colleges that may have required those in the past, some of the Ivy League or highly, highly selective schools that required those, have all done away with that requirement accordingly. The ACT exam is a competitor of the College Board's SAT. It's a slightly different format. It has 4 sections. The score is scaled differently. It's out of 36. And for that, we have December 11th Again, not at Falmouth High School, but a nearby school, you need to register by November 5th. And February 12th, you'd need to register by January 7th. For both of these tests, the student would be responsible for sending their scores directly to their colleges. And now, after I gave you all that great information and detail about these two tests, the best news of all is last year, due to the pandemic and difficulty with students getting in to test, I am not aware of one college as I sit here right now that is requiring standardized tests for this application cycle. They did this last year, and every college that I've looked into is continuing that for next year. So what does that mean? So if a student has already taken that, they can look over their scores on the Scattergrams is a great way to do that, and get an idea of whether they think their test scores, their SAT scores, for example, will help their application. If they have questions about this, definitely check in with your guidance counselor and we can show you how to ascertain if we feel this will help your candidacy to a school or not. But any school where they are test optional, basically the student will not be penalized in any way at all if they do not send test scores. It's just one less piece of information that the colleges will be evaluating the student based upon. Okay, so lots of good news with admissions testing. Now, next up is Miss Susie Brooks to continue our discussion about the admissions process.
Thank you, Mr. Lawson. Good evening, everyone. Ms. Payne and Mr. Lawson have given us a lot of good information about how to research certain schools, how to prepare for the application process. And now I will start talking about when you might want to apply and start getting into how exactly you apply. All of this information will be gone over with your students as well. We will all meet one-on-one with your students and go through every detail that we go over tonight. So don't fret if you miss anything. So the admissions definitions, you've probably heard that there are early applications as well as regular applications. When we're talking about early applications, there are two different types of early applications. So if you're planning on applying early, you really want to make sure you're applying to the one you think you are. The application deadlines for both early action and early decision tend to be in either November or December. And the difference between these two is that early decision is a binding agreement. So if you're applying early decision somewhere and you are accepted, that means you're going to that school. So you really want to make sure you've done your research and you've looked around and this is the school for your student. Because not only are you bound by December of your senior year, but you're also bound to one financial aid package that they offer you. Whereas if you're applying in a different realm, you can look at the different financial aid packages from different schools and make a decision based upon that. Now, early action, you're still applying at the same time, November or December. However, this is not a binding agreement. You can still decide where you would like to go to school. There is a little stipulation in some schools that have what's called restrictive early action. This is also non-binding, but you can only apply to one school early action with restrictive early action. So the benefits to these is that you're finding out a little earlier what's happening with your college applications. And just like anything, there are pros and there are cons. So if your student has any questions about when they should apply, please have them come to us and we'll have a conversation about that. Now, regular decision applications the deadlines tend to be between January and February. Some will even go into the month of March. This is when the majority of students are applying, and it gives them a good deal of time. If your student is one that hasn't done the bulk of the research and still needs to go on some tours and still needs to make some decisions, it is okay. You can still apply regular decision and have plenty of time to do that. Now you might see rolling admission for any school that you're interested in as well. And they won't give you an absolute deadline. They'll give you a suggested deadline. But what they do is they process the applications as they come into the school. So it really gives you a large window of time where you can apply. And as they're processing the applications, that also means that you tend to hear back a little earlier as well. So it usually only takes 4 to 6 weeks to hear a decision from a rolling admission school. Sorry, my kids are yelling from upstairs. Good night, Mom. So excuse me if I jumble my words. Next page, Ms. Payne. Okay, now for the process that we usually go through at the Falmouth High School Guidance Department. And once again, we will go through all of these steps with your students as well. So the most important word at this point is deadline, and that goes for both applications and scholarship applications. You really don't want to miss out on anything. And if you do miss the deadlines, that means you will likely miss out on something. Keep in mind that it needs to be submitted by that date. It doesn't need to be submitted a month earlier or anything like that. Once again, if the students have any questions about deadlines, please just have them come and talk to us. So the other thing that I tend to tell my students is that they are going to have 2 favorite websites from here on out, and that is Common App and Naviance. These are really, really important websites, so they can go ahead and bookmark them right now on their computers, because they will be going back to both of these websites quite a bit. So if you haven't already registered on Common App, this is something that your student can do. And make sure you're keeping your login information in a safe place, because you are logging in so much. You can save it on your computer, but a lot of times if they have questions, they might come to guidance, try to sign on a different computer and forget their password. So I always say, just take out your phone, put it in your notes so you know you always have it. And then we also want you to complete your final list of colleges, both on the Common App and on Naviance. This will help us tremendously when we start to get the items out to the schools. And then when you're filling out your application, the majority of it is personal information that should not be too difficult. You might come across some questions that you don't know the answer to, and that's what we're here for. So just make sure you reach out to us if you have any questions about specific questions on the Common application. You'll see when you have all of your colleges listed on Naviance, the 2 little icons that you'll see at the bottom of this page, which are little computers that say CA or just a blank computer. So this will help you instead of navigating through the college websites, which can be confusing. If you just look on Naviance, you'll see these icons, and that will tell you which schools accept the Common application. If a school does not accept the Common application, you're simply going to that school's website and filling out the application on their website. Okay, admissions process continued. I usually print out this page and give it to my students and say, when you do these steps, just take this page and follow it step by step, and it will take you 1.5 minutes. So step 4 we're on at this point, and that is completing the FERPA waiver on the Common App. Now, between the FAFSA and the FERPA, we have a lot of funny names that we throw out during the application process. The FERPA stands for the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, and this is a federal law that protects students' records. We ask that the students sign a waiver that says that they waive their right to see anything that is sent on their behalf to the colleges. And quite frankly, you can ask any of us to see your transcript, but mostly you won't see the letters of recommendation that are sent to the colleges. Now, you only need to do this once. You don't need to do it for each and every school, because if you're doing it on the Common App, as soon as you sign that waiver, it will make sure that the waiver is signed for all of the schools that you have on your Common App list. So these steps will bring the students through that. If they're having any trouble with it at all, I know all of us have gone through the process with our students, so they can come up to the guidance office and we'll take them through it. The next step is to sign on to Naviance so we can actually connect the two programs together. So it's really important that, as Ms. Payne mentioned, the guidance counselors and the teachers submit their letters of recommendation. We also submit the transcripts through Naviance, and we want to make sure it's connected to your common application. So the way that they do this is to log on to Naviance with this link. They will click on colleges I'm applying to, and then it will say match accounts. When they click on match accounts, it should bring up their Common App page. And then they can match those two accounts. And that is what allows us to send our letters and transcripts through Naviance to attach to their common application. Once again, if they're confused at all, just have them reach out to us. Okay, so there's a lot of items that goes over the application itself, and there are a lot of supplemental items that I know can start to worry students. But once we meet, I can speak for everybody, I think, that usually once we go over this information with them, they say, oh, okay, that doesn't feel so bad. So we really have it down to a science with how to ask teachers for recommendations, with how to ask us to send transcripts. So we will go through all of this with your student. But this is a neat little page that will show what your student's responsibilities are. So you can even print it out and put it on the refrigerator so you can get through college application time. And make sure that you have everything checked off the list. So I'm actually going to start in the furthest column that says what they have to send themselves. So they're actually sending off their application and their application fee themselves. Years ago, the applications used to come through the guidance office. They are just hitting submit on their computer and sending them themselves. They don't need to do anything with us unless they have questions about how to fill out the application. They're also going to upload their college essay onto their application and submit that as well. Some schools also have supplemental questions that they want answered as well. So you want to make sure that you know if it's simply just an essay that you need to send in, or if you have additional questions that you need to answer. And then if the student decides to take an SAT or an ACT, and they also decide that they like those scores enough to send to the schools, then they are required to have them sent through the company themselves. So if they're taking the SAT, they will simply log on to College Board and have those scores sent to their schools. And same goes for ACT. They would go to act.org, log on, and have those sent to the schools that they're interested in. Working a little backwards here, we'll go on to the column where it says what the student needs to bring their teacher. So a lot of students have already or chomping at the bit and said, you know, I really want that recommendation request. But that just goes to show how well trained we have our teachers, that as soon as they're asked, they say, okay, get me that form. So what the form is, and I have just to show you here. It's a pink recommendation form, which again, your student will get a copy, and we also have available online. So if you lose your copy, you can simply print out another copy. And that recommendation form will list the colleges that your student is applying to, and also has a number of questions that will help the teacher write their letter of recommendations. So questions like, what classes did you take with me? What do you remember most about the class? So it can jog some memories and give them some antidotes to write about. Now, the teachers in school all have a Naviance account, so they will be logging in, uploading their letter, and then sending them off to the colleges that you have asked them to send them to. If you have letters of recommendation from anybody outside of school, they would not have a Naviance account. So what we usually request is that if they're comfortable giving the letter to you, then you can simply mail that letter to the colleges. Or if they're not comfortable with that, you can give them addressed and stamped envelopes to mail to all of your colleges. And that will, we assure you, we've done it for years and years, it will get to your application. And then lastly, what you want to bring to your counselor. So one thing that we need to send out to make your application complete is the transcript. So we have these little half sheets, little green sheets. We have them in guidance. You will each get a good handful of them. And once again, we have them online as well. So on this sheet, we need one of these sheets for every school that you apply to. And what that tells us is that jogs our memory to say, ooh, we need to get that transcript out to that school. We also ask that students and parents fill out what we call a brag sheet, which is pretty much what it sounds like. It's you bragging about your student and the student giving us a little more information about their time during high school. This really helps us because guidance counselors have to write letters for all of our students. And I know all of our guidance counselors at Falmouth High like to do our students justice and write them an individualized letter that means something. So sometimes, again, these sheets give us some inspiration while we're writing the letters. And also we'll go over with your student about a college resume. And Ms. Ruthven will talk a little more about what that looks like, but we will attach that to our transcript and our letter of recommendation as well and mail that out to the colleges. So once again, this is a nice little form that will show you exactly what the responsibilities of the students are. One thing I do want to mention before I turn it over is that we do ask, you have to pay attention to the deadline, but we do ask that you get all of these items to your counselor and to your teacher at least 2 weeks before your deadline. This ensures that we will have enough time to get everything together and out to your colleges on time, since we are working with a lot of students. So at least 2 weeks. That doesn't mean that you have to wait until 2 weeks. The student can bring the items in at any point in time, but please give us sufficient time so we can make sure that we make your deadline. So now I will turn it over to Mrs. Ruthven, who will talk a little more about these supplemental items.
Thank you, Mrs. Brooks. Good evening, everyone. I'm Mrs. Ruthven, and I get to start out by talking about ways to personalize your application. So first, there's the resume that Mrs. Brooks mentioned. And this is not a resume for a job application, but rather showcasing your involvement beyond being a student in the classroom for your 4 years of high school. Colleges want to know how you spend your time. So essentially, it's a list of all of your activities throughout your high school career. So sports, work, community service, honor societies, and then you want to note the years or amount of commitment to each of those. And I just want to mention, if you're already working on your Common application, it's basically the honors and the activities sections of the Common App more or less streamlined on one page, but it doesn't limit you like the Common App does. And actually, creating the resume would probably make filling out those Common App sections even easier. So there's no standard format for the resume. Counselors have some samples to share with students if they want some ideas on how to organize it. And I always tell my students who are concerned that they don't have enough on their resume that colleges are more concerned with the quality of involvement rather than the quantity. So this resume really wants to reflect a meaningful use of your time in your areas of interest. And the resume is definitely helpful to share with your counselor and teachers to help us with our letters, like Mrs. Brooks mentioned. So you would definitely want to email your resume to us, your counselors, so we can include it along with our letters of recommendations, and then it can be sent on your behalf. And then next is the essay. The essay, I love the essay. This is a fantastic opportunity to show who you are to the admissions as an individual. You know, when you think about it, transcripts may start to look the same. Several students may have taken the same classes, similar GPA. So this is really your chance to share your individual voice. Your goal is to try to distinguish yourself amidst the other applicants, which may seem somewhat daunting, but hopefully the prompts can give you help to, give you some direction, inspiration. And, I've learned over the years that it's definitely those ordinary topics, such as a hobby or maybe a specific experience that tells a story and offers just some insight to you that are the most memorable ones. So this slide shows some of the common application prompts. There are actually 7 in total. The word limit is 650. And I wanted to just point out the new one that they came out with this year that's right at the top where that bullseye is. Reflect on something that someone has done for you that has made you happy or thankful in a surprising way. How has this gratitude affected or motivated you? I love that one. So I'm hoping students can use this prompt and even find a little enjoyment in the application process writing about this topic. I know based on some conversations with students or seniors this week that some are working on their essay in their English classes, and you'll get some critique and feedback there. And I always say too that counselors love to read college essays. So if you need another set of eyes, please take us up on that offer. And then next is the interview, which can be another chance to demonstrate who you are individually. So this can be conducted either in person or via Zoom, depending on the school's policy. And I also just want to mention that quite a few college interviews were already done online even before the pandemic. So colleges know how to conduct a virtual interview that covers the same information that an in-person one would. And you can prepare for both of them the same way. So either way, whether you're meeting in person or virtually, most college interviewers aren't really trying to put you on the spot. You know, they're just using the chance to get to know you further. They want to engage you in conversations about your interests and hopefully give you a chance to learn some more about their school to determine if it's a good fit for you or not. Some selective schools might require or strongly recommend the interview, and they'll have instructions on how to set that up on their admissions page. Those that offer informational interviews, consider those as optional. But I would say even if an interview is optional, it's still a good idea to set it up, especially if it's a school on the top of your list, because not only will you make a good contact, but you're also actively demonstrating your interest in the school. So just check the school's website to see if you can take advantage of this option. And just to reference the tips here on the slide, ideally you can meet with the FHS admissions rep, who may be the one reading your application, a nice chance to put a name to a face. Make sure you are prepared to answer questions about yourself. You could even have your resume maybe on hand to give to the admissions rep. And just think ahead of some of the things they might ask, you know, what's your favorite subject? What do you like to do for fun? Maybe what's been a challenge lately? And then you definitely want to have done your research of the school and have questions prepped ahead of time that you can ask. You don't want to say no when they ask you if you have any questions. You definitely want to have some questions in your back pocket. So just, you know, maybe learn about courses or extracurriculars that might be of interest to you. You definitely just want to demonstrate your knowledge of the school's specific offerings. So just make sure you've done your homework. And while the interview may be virtual and that might feel maybe a little more casual, remember to take it seriously, dress nicely, keep distractions and background noise to a minimum. And really the bottom line is that the admissions reps are looking at the interview as a chance to get to know you as a person better. So look at this as an opportunity to establish that personal connection, but also get to learn about the school. So it's, you know, more or less a conversation. And then the next slide, we just wanted to mention some of the changes in the admissions process in light of the pandemic that we've been navigating. Colleges will accept the pass-fail grades on your transcripts, and for this class, it was during the spring of sophomore year. FHS students will be considered in that context and not compared with how other schools handled things. And this is noted on our school profile, which we do send to each college for each student. So we'll give a description of how we handled that spring. And then in terms of extracurriculars, colleges know that there was the shutdown of activities in the spring of 2020. And they also know that last year's clubs and sports might have been slightly different. So you could certainly make a note of that on your resume or your application if that's appropriate. And while most schools are opening up for in-person visits and open houses, some of the larger college fairs remain virtual, like the NACAC Fair link that's included here. But fortunately, as Mr. Kazarian mentioned, we have our FHS Fair coming up, and we're really excited to have that in person once again. And it was mentioned already by Mr. Lawson, but the majority of colleges are still test optional for this admission cycle. Many colleges are, seem to recognize that standardized tests are becoming far less important in the grand scheme of things. So it's not a trick question when schools say they're test optional. It's one less thing to worry about. And then lastly, colleges are continuing to get creative in assessing students more holistically. So again, take advantage of an optional interview, or even if a school might offer you uploading a short video answering a quick question as part of your application. For example, Bowdoin, I think, offers that. But any chance to really show some of your individuality, you want to take advantage. So now, how are we going to pay for college? So Mr. Kazarian mentioned MIFA, which is such a tremendous resource. Please take advantage of the ongoing webinars they offer to walk you through the financial aid process. And then the FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid, is available beginning October 1st. And this will determine what kind of federal aid a student receives in terms of loans and grants. And the link is included here to start that process. I also want to add that the online help for FAFSA works great. You can get support from an actual person. And I actually heard from a number of families last year that this feature was super, super helpful. And then some private colleges will require the CSS profile in addition to the FAFSA. And this will determine what kind of non-federal aid you might receive for a school. This is also available beginning October 1st. And you would just check the link that's included here for what schools would require it. But this allows a student to gain access to a large source of funding that may not be available through the FAFSA alone. And then just want to mention that favorite word, deadline. You want to watch for those financial aid deadlines as you would college application deadlines. It's going to be a favorite household word for you. And then lastly, scholarships, the free money. This is, we have a couple links here for some national scholarship sites. And Ms. Carrera, our scholarship coordinator, is amazing and always tries to get the word out on any available scholarships. So check your emails. I know she's been sending those out. And right now there are a few that she's sent to the class, but we will have scholarship workshops beginning in January to walk you through the general process. The majority of the scholarships are due typically in the spring, and they're accessed through Naviance. So seniors should be very comfortable at that point using it and accessing it. And you definitely want to put in a lot of time and apply for as many as you can. It can be a lot of work, but it's worth it. We have a very generous community in Falmouth. One of my favorite nights of the year is the June Awards night, where we announce the scholarship recipients, and some students walk away with a lot of money. So it's definitely worth the blood, sweat, and tears that you put into the scholarship application process.
Thank you, Mrs. Ruthven. If we can leave this page up for a minute, Ms. Payne, in case parents want to take a look at their child's guidance counselor and how to email them. Please note Mrs. Brooks, it's an S_ and then Brooks and her email address. So I think we've given you lots and lots of information, and you're probably thinking, oh my goodness. Just to slow it down for a minute, every senior will get a copy of this PowerPoint when they meet with their guidance counselor, or they'll get a similar package of information that will have all the material in it. And then also, in addition, every senior will get a copy of the college fair list. I will email that out to you. And that's another powerful word, is email. Please check your email. I have no other way, or the guidance department or counselors, the best way to contact you regarding programs, regarding scholarships, regarding events is through your email. So please keep check of emails. In addition, there are college representatives who have asked to come to visit Falmouth High School, and we have told them they are allowed to after school. So you're going to hear announcements of college reps having meetings at Falmouth High School in the guidance office after school, or possibly on Zoom. We had yesterday Villanova Zoomed in with some students, university. So keep an eye to that. Watch your emails, listen to the school announcements. What we're going to do now for the next 10 or 15 minutes or so is open up the chat, and Mr. Weber will monitor the chat. If you have questions right now, some general questions that you'd like to type in, you're welcome to do so, and Mr. Weber will read them out, and the counselors will answer them for you.
All right, I'd just like to introduce myself. I'm Mr. Weber. I'm the video teacher here. I also run our educational access channel. In addition to all that, and I'm not even sure Mr. Kazarian is aware, but I actually am the father of a senior at a different school. So this is a part of the process I'm going through just as much as all of you are out in Zoom land as well. So I see questions starting to come in, but I do want to have one that from a text perspective, I just wanted to ask. I heard Ms. Payne, you had mentioned that you're encouraging students not to use their school emails for signing up for different things, especially the Common App, as well as for going through for some of that other stuff. Why would that be, and why would that be bad potentially if students did?
Great question. So the student emails have a block on them, meaning they can only send and receive emails from other Falmouth email addresses. This means that if you use that email to sign up for an outside source, such as the Common App or any of your college information, and you forget your password, or they are trying to email you saying that a deadline is coming up, or a college is trying to get in contact with you, you are not going to receive those emails. You're not even going to know that something got bounced back. So it's exceptionally important that you use a personal email. And honestly, one of the best suggestions that I heard from another parent when I first started this job was that they created an entirely new email just for college stuff. And it turned into the students' sort of professional email once they were in college, but you can use a completely separate email so that nothing financial aid wise, nothing from the colleges gets lost. And it could be something even that both parents and students can access at the same time.
Great, thank you so much. So we started got a lot of questions filtering in. I'll try to do my best to go through them. I apologize if I don't get to yours right away. It's going to be interesting to keep up with everything. The first one I see, which I think probably would be something I think everyone was curious about. Can parents access Naviance? How would they do so?
So it's funny, we just had that question today. Mrs. Brooks had a request. Parents may access Naviance through their guidance counselor. So we're going to start through that process, and we have to open up and create an account for a parent to access that. A parent may also access their student's account if the student gives them or opens it up for them. Students have single sign-on options right through the computer. But if someone wants to add to that, Mrs. Brooks or anybody, feel free to do so.
Sure. We had a phone conversation with Naviance today because they have changed things up on us. They don't give access the same way that they used to. So we wanted to make sure we knew exactly what to do. So just as Mr. K mentioned, if you are interested in just having parent access, please give your son or daughter's guidance counselor either a call or shoot us an email, and we can get that process going for you. We just have to set it up, and then you will in return get an email from Naviance to log on. So feel free to email any of us if you have that request.
Great, thank you. So I've got a question and I have a follow-up to it. So when is the most convenient time to apply for FAFSA in regard to financial aid? And will we be talking about it later potentially?
I can take this.
Oh,
So
good.
the most convenient time, anytime after October 1st, once the application is open, is perfectly fine whenever you've completed the application. And I want to take the a little bit of the stress level down on the FAFSA too. This application, as Ms. Ruthven mentioned, it has really improved greatly over the years. They have fantastic help text in each field as you're filling this out. I would fill this out, geez, over 10 years ago, I would fill this out with parents well under a half an hour. So it's really not something that's that complicated to do. But yeah, as soon as possible, go in there, get that in, and ensure that the student meets their school's deadlines.
Great, thank you. Mr. Kazarian, is it okay if we go out of full screen now so we can see everyone's smiling faces?
Oh, I like it. Go for it.
All right, the next question is, how do students decide which teacher to ask for a recommendation? Is it a favorite teacher, a core academics? How do parents decide or students decide that?
I can take that one. I was just talking with a senior today about that. So I think, you want to pick a teacher or teachers who truly know you best, so it doesn't have to be the teacher where you sailed through and got an A necessarily, but if it's a teacher where you stayed after school and you put in some of that extra time and maybe even, struggled in the beginning and then improved at the end, I feel, a teacher that truly knows you. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a math teacher or have to be an English teacher. Our rule of thumb is typically you want to pick one academic teacher, and then that second letter could be a coach or an employer even, or another academic or elective teacher, but really just somebody who knows you well.
Great, thank you very much. Quick specific question for the Heisman Scholarship, does marching band count?
Yes, it does. Yeah.
Great, moving on. This is a little multi-part. I'll see if I can break it up. We have heard that there are SAT blind and SAT optional, and that optional just really means that if the student doesn't submit them, that they'll be assumed to be not as good. I see you shaking your head already. Is it accurate? What can you tell me about that?
Mr. Lawson, you want to go for it?
Sure, I love the testing questions. I've looked into this quite a bit. No, test optional is not a trick. There is definitely not an assumption if a student does not submit scores that they are not as good. In many cases, students weren't able to test during the pandemic for various reasons, but it is absolutely just one less piece of information that school will be evaluating that student based upon, but there is no downside whatsoever to not submitting scores.
We've talked to a number of reps about this, especially with last year's class. And I think that idea is pre-pandemic. I mean, in the earlier days when this just started to be, when that became an option, that, you know, people hid away from their scores, but the colleges have told us no test scores required, and they're sticking by that. So, but again, check with the college admission requirements for that particular school.
Thank you. Got an interesting next question. So if a student was seeking a recommendation for a teacher that no longer works at the high school, whether they're retired or whatever, how would we potentially go about trying to get a recommendation from said teacher?
That just happened today, Ms. Ruthven, right?
So I know Mrs. Brooks mentioned, you know, that you can give somebody outside of Falmouth a stamped envelope and they can mail it. But one other option is you can invite the former teacher through the Common App as an other recommender. So then the Common App would send a link to that former teacher or, you know, teacher who might be teaching elsewhere, and then they'll be able to send the letter directly through the Common App for that student.
One word of warning, however, is that you do not want to send the Common App request to your Falmouth High School teacher. If that happens, they will not be able to send their letter through Naviance, which is our process. So if you're confused at all, I know it seems confusing because we're talking about two different websites and we're giving different instructions. But if it is a Falmouth High School teacher, you don't have to send them any online requests whatsoever. You simply have to fill out the recommendation request and give that to them.
Thank you. That, I think, makes a lot of sense. Can dual enrollment kids go to the college fair, Mr. Kazarian?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Dual enrollment students are Falmouth High School students. So yes, absolutely, positively. Yes.
Awesome, thanks. Next question. Are there resources at Falmouth High School to help students with writing the supplemental essays?
I can take this one. So there's not a sort of formalized assistance, but I would speak for all of the counselors that we're more than happy to speak with the students if they want to run by, you know, some ideas for those supplemental questions. The nice part is those are a glimpse into who you are as a student. So if the question feels very authentic to answer it in a certain way, feel free to do that. They want to see who you are as a person, and this is just another chance to go beyond your grades, beyond the courses that you took, beyond even what's on your resume, and be able to see who you are a little bit better.
Great, thank you.
We can also, excuse me 1 second. I was just going to say, certainly we can always access an English teacher. I mean, if we need to, you know what I mean? And I'm hopeful that teachers are doing this with students, or they did it or tried to last year in junior year, or maybe the beginning of senior year. But if you were having trouble getting a prompt going or getting started, I mean, I can even help you. I mean, any counselor can help you, but certainly your English teacher could help you as well.
Great, thank you. Oh, my questions just skipped around. Sorry, hold on. Does FAFSA provide information for financial aid for military families?
Everybody's shaking their head.
Yes, it does. Yes, there is a question in there, and yes, that would give you the information.
Okay, great, thanks. Follow-up financial aid question. How is the process different if applying to schools in Canada?
Uh-oh. Who wants to answer that one? You're muted, Mrs. Ruthven.
I was just thinking that is a good question. We can look into that.
The federal application for free financial aid is for a United States citizen in a United States college. We'll have to do some research around that with you regarding students. We've had students certainly go to Canadian schools, but we're going to have to do some research with you around that part.
Okay, great. Thanks. Next question. Can or should parents attend the college fair with their students?
You know what, in the past, we always encourage parents to come. I'm gonna have to get back to you on that one and see what the district, because now that will increase. We're trying to decrease the amount of engagement in the field house. So we used to open it up to all the students, freshmen through senior. We're not having the grade 9 or grade 10 students come to the fair. We want the seniors to have their space, and then we're giving the juniors an opportunity as well. So I don't know that adding another layer of parents in numbers is going to work. But let me. I will definitely finalize that, and I'll send an email out to all the parents regarding that.
If I can just add on to that as well, not only are we trying to lessen the amount of people for the fair, but throughout the whole process, I think this brings up a really good point, is your seniors, you can certainly look at the list together and say, you know what, you want to go talk to this representative and star some of the important schools for you and your family. But again, these are the people that are going to be reading the applications for your students. So it would be much more impressive if a student walked up, shook that representative's hand and introduced themselves than their parents doing so for them. And that just goes across the board. If you have an interview and you want to send a thank you email or note to them for their time, make sure it's from the student. Now's the time for the student to step up and really show that, you know, they're going to college on their own. So let's have them, let's put the onus on them.
Great, thank you. All right, next question. Is there any validity to the idea that good SAT scores are considered and helpful when college is offering a merit financial aid package?
In this day and age, with all of the schools going test optional, again, they've made allowances for that. I think it really, again, comes down to the question of whether or not those SAT scores are helping their application in any way. But no, I mean, with schools being test optional nowadays, there are other ways of them considering them for merit.
Great, thank you. Two-part question. Are employer recommendations an option if they're pertinent to the field of study? And then the subsequent follow-up, if so, can we invite them through the app for the recommendation?
Yep, so just along the same lines that I mentioned before, you can just go to the other recommender section on the Common App and put in the employer's email, and then Common App will be able to send them a link directly.
Great, thanks. All right, next question. If schools are really going test optional, is it worth students taking the SATs additional times if they did well the first time, but we're hoping to improve in their scoring?
I think I'm the test optional person, so I'll take this again. Not generally, no. No, I don't think that is. Again, this could be a case-by-case basis. So if the student wanted to consult with their guidance counselor, would be more than happy to help them with that. But generally speaking, I would say that it's not that critical anymore.
Okay, looks like we've run out of questions right for the second, but I do have one question just to throw it out there. What would you all, any of you, have to say about college visits? I know right now in COVID times that somewhat happening, but not completely, like, especially for families to get a feel for the school. Do you feel like that's a good thing? What would you say for people that were potentially trying to go if they were thinking?
I can start. I think we could probably all say a little bit about this question. I think if you feel comfortable and if the school has safety policies that you agree with, absolutely visiting the college can be a crucial step in the process. I know on a personal level, there was a college that I applied to that driving in, I felt, nope, this is not going to be right for me. Yet on paper, it would have been perfect. So there's just so much that you realize seeing the community, seeing the campus, sort of getting that feel for do you feel comfortable on the campus itself? Now there is a very, very wonderful side to this whole COVID nonsense that, you know, derailed everything. It did improve all of the college's virtual tours. So I recommend at least starting there, getting a good feel for, is it worth going, although taking the risk to go up to this college? Do we really like it, or do I need to see a little bit more? There are certainly really good options for you if you do not feel comfortable going to a college. That's perfectly reasonable.
We're hearing more and more. I mean, last year there were really no college visits at all. But the campuses are slowly letting us know that they're opening to more and more visitors. And just to echo what Ms. Payne said, we've always thought it's a really important part of the process. So depending on your comfort level, if you're comfortable with it, definitely get out there and look. Tons of schools have open houses during the fall. It's such a nice time to go and visit. And if you are visiting, then we can excuse an absence if it's during the school time. So come and see your guidance counselor if you're planning a visit that's during school time.
Yep, and there's a long 4-day weekend coming up in October, so that would be a great time to take advantage of some visits.
I'm a huge advocate for college visits. I believe that seeing colleges may teach a student, you know, if they get a feel for, you know, this is what the size of a school looks like, you know, that has 5,000 students, it may appear larger or smaller than they thought. So I think visiting almost any college can be beneficial for students and parents.
And if nothing else, at least you can drive around the area, like was already mentioned. And if they don't let you in, then you can maybe ride through the campus, or like Ms. Payne said, get a sense of what's around in the area and so forth. We're going to start winding down. Certainly, we can continue this discussion, and parents are welcome to certainly email your child's guidance counselor anytime, or pick up the phone and have a conversation with your child's guidance counselor. Students, I know, again, we give you a lot of information. Your counselor is skilled at doing this job, and I'm proud of the work that they do with students. And I know that you'll be okay, and that they will work with you and help you through this. And whatever questions that maybe we didn't answer or that you still have, we will certainly answer them for you. The last piece, which is, again, I'm going to reiterate to parents, is to please go to mifa.org/events to find out a webinar on how to fill out the FAFSA, what the FAFSA involves, understanding the profile that was already mentioned. Some colleges require a FAFSA and a profile. It's called CSS profile. So those financial pieces are important, and understanding them and how to complete them in a timely manner so that you do not get shut out of financial aid. I would use, Mr. Lawson, what do you think, January 1st is a deadline, or any of the counselors, to get the FAFSA done?
Yeah, unless the student is applying early, of course. If they have a November 1st deadline, you'd want them to get the financial aid form there as close to that time as possible too.
Okay. Any other questions, Mr. Weber, before we end?
I just threw the link in the
Perfect.
chat for everyone. Also, too, just a reminder that if you want to refer back to this video, we will be putting this back up on the Falmouth Public Schools YouTube page at a later date, and I'll throw that link up in just a second as well.
Perfect. I think we have it. So again, I thank you all so very much for joining us this evening. It's a great discussion. Again, a lot of information. We will work with you. We'll get you there, and hopefully, and a little message to the seniors, keep up the good work and keep study hard. And these grades count. So we have a GPA for you. We're going to recalculate GPA at the end of every mocking period. So who knows when your transcript gets sent? Those of you who are applying early are going to be having your transcript sent, which includes the end of your junior year, because we don't have semester one, Q1 grades, but those will go at a later date. So don't think because you've applied, you're out of the woods. No, you got to keep your grades up. You got to keep doing well. And guess what happens? We send grades again at midterms. So all of you who applied to schools who are not accepted by the end of the first semester, we send you first semester grades. So that's Q1 and Q2. All right. So it's not going to look too good if you're in core classes and not keeping up your grades. And then guess what we do again? At the end of the year, we send just to the one college that you tell us you're going to, we send your final grades, your final transcript and your GPA. So that's a little bit of relief. But again, to that one college that you're committed to and you've already paid your deposit to, they can turn around and say, sorry, you didn't keep up your end of the bargain. So, and it's a non-refundable deposit, usually $500 or more. So just a little words of the wise. Keep up your grades, do the best that you can, and have an awesome senior year. We thank you all very much for your time and for your attention, and we'll say good night. Thank you.